Paralyzed Millionaire's shocking response to begging girl. You won't believe what happens next. In a dimly lit alley behind the town's flashiest restaurant, a scene unfolded that would be the talk of the town for weeks. A silver wheelchair, gleaming under the flickering street lamp, was parked just out of sight. It was no ordinary chair, it belonged to Victor Hastings, one of the wealthiest men in America, a millionaire known for his cutthroat business moves and enigmatic aura. With a sudden jolt, Victor's gaze locked on the figure approaching him, a young woman with dirt-smudged cheeks and desperate, wide eyes that seemed to reflect the dim light like shattered glass. She wore ragged clothes, her hands shaking uncontrollably as she clutched a crumpled sign saying, "Help me. Please." It was a scene that tugged at the heart, yet behind Victor's cold, calculating demeanor, a storm brewed. He was a man of mystery, known to keep his secrets buried as deep as his fortune. Those who dared glimpse behind the curtain of his private life whispered tales of betrayal, regret, and dark contracts written in shadows, but tonight, as the chilling wind sliced through the alley, there was an undeniable electricity in the air. The girl stepped closer, vulnerability radiating from her like an open wound. Victor, immobile yet commanding, felt an unfamiliar twist in his chest. Was it compassion? Or was it the thrill of power? He hadn't felt anything like this since the accident that stole his ability to walk and left him isolated in his gilded cage of wealth. Just then, a nervous murmur bubbled among the onlookers. There were a few, hidden behind the dumpsters, their curiosity gnawing at their insides. "What he gonna do?" One whispered, eyes darting between Victor and the pleading girl. Another gasped, "He's known for being ruthless." Their hushed tones cut through the tension, amplifying the weight of the moment. Victor's jaw tightened, and with a sudden movement that startled the crowd, he leaned forward, an intoxicating blend of fear and authority in his expression. "You think you can just waltz into my presence and demand help?" He barked, the sound echoing around the alley like a clap of thunder. Just as the girl opened her mouth to reply, Victor silenced her with the sudden resignation of his expression, a flicker of understanding perhaps. He grabbed her wrist suddenly, pulling her closer, his grip vice-like. And then, in an unexpected twist, he spoke a single phrase that would change everything. "You think I'm the only one paralyzed here? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The night began to close in as the crowd held their breath. What did he mean? Had he twisted the meaning of paralyzed into something deeper? The girl's eyes widened, confusion and fear knotted in her throat. Clutches of adrenaline coursed through both their bodies as they stared at each other, silently questioning who held the real power in that alley. Time seemed to slow as a silhouette emerged in the shadows behind Victor, unseen yet palpably tense, the weight of destiny hanging as heavy as the darkness itself. What would happen next when the lines of privilege and desperation blurred in unthinkable ways? Would Victor finally shed his cold exterior, or would he grip his secrets tighter, suffocating hope? The answers hung in the air, tantalizingly just out of reach. The girl's heart raced as she stared into Victor's intense gaze. What did he mean by that? She was just a nameless face in a city of millions, begging for scraps of mercy from a man known for crushing dreams. His fingers dug into her wrist, an anchor tethering her to the reality she desperately wanted to escape. The crowd held its collective breath, watching, waiting. The tension was palpable. "So, Victor," a smooth voice cut through the electric silence. The silhouette stepped forward, revealing a tall figure dressed in a tailored suit that screamed power. It was Jace Donovan, a notorious rival of Victor's, known as much for his ruthless ambition as for his charm. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Jace was trouble, always lurking in the background, playing games of chess while others scrambled for a checkmate. His eyes glinted with mischief as he surveyed the scene. What a delightful little gathering you've organized here. A millionaire and a beggar, a tale of modern-day Robin Hood, is it? Victor's grip on the girl loosened slightly as he turned to face Jace, fury and disbelief battling on his features. You're not welcome here. This isn't your game to play. Oh, but it is, Jace replied with a smirk. You see, the moment you decided to engage, you stepped into my world. You've been the untouchable king on your throne for too long. How does it feel to have your precious control threatened? The girl watched their exchange, her heart pounding in her ears. A sense of vulnerability crept back into her chest, suffocating her. The alley felt smaller, the crowd's whispers growing louder, the stakes rising higher. She turned her gaze back to Victor. What would he do? What do you want, Jace? Victor's voice was steely, but the tremor in it hinted at a deeper fear, an impending storm. Jace took a menacing step closer, eyes glimmering like sharpened knives. Want? It's not what I want, dear Victor, it's what you need to realize. It's not just your legs that are paralyzed. It's your mind, your heart. You hide behind your wealth and power, but you've become nothing more than a puppet, tied to the strings of your own fear. The crowd gasped, the weight of Jace's words hanging in the air like a thick fog. The girl felt the shift, sensing the fragile balance breaking. What was meant to be a moment of desperation from her spiraled into a confrontation that dug deep into Victor's soul. Victor's eyes flickered with understanding, and in that ephemeral moment, it was clear that Jace had struck a nerve. You don't know me. Victor shot back, his face heated. You think your games and theatrics intimidate me? Do they not? Jace whispered, leaning closer, the faintest edge of menace tainting his tone. You live in a prison of your making, Victor. Silver wheelchair or not, you're trapped. Unseen faces watched in awe, the electric anticipation coursing through them as the standoff intensified. Would Jace's words cut deeper than the physical pain Victor had suffered? The girl felt the breath catch in her chest. This was more than just about her. Suddenly, the murmur of the crowd crescendoed in a mix of shock and excitement. It swirled around them, building into a potent storm, one crack away from collapse. The stakes had never felt higher. Victor locked eyes with the girl again, his expression shifting. What if I told you I could help you but at a cost? That one statement left an echoing silence, a heavy pause that hung over them like a dark cloud. The girl's heart pounded. What did he mean by that? What was he willing to risk, and what would she have to sacrifice? As the tension reached a fever pitch, a new threat prowled just beyond the edges of their little world, ready to shatter the fragile moment. What dark secrets came with Victor's offer, and what were the true costs of their entangled fates? A flicker of movement caught the girl's eye in the shadows. Another figure lurked, watching closely. The real game was just beginning. The girl's breath caught in her throat as she turned toward the shadows. Whoever was there hung in the periphery, a dark specter whispering of danger. Instead of visibility, there was only an unsettling presence, making her heart race even faster. Anxiety coursed through her like ice. Victor's eyes were still fixed on hers, a flicker of resolve igniting behind the initial uncertainty. You don't have to suffer anymore, he said slowly, each word dripping with a heavy promise. But she could sense the cost lurking just beneath the surface. What do you want from me? She blurted out, her voice a strained whisper. The crowd aligned around them held its breath, the air thick with anticipation as they wondered what Victor would say. Strength, he replied, his voice a low growl. I need someone who understands how to fight against the odds. Jace laughed, cutting through the tension like a blade. Do you think offering her false hope is the answer? You would use her as a pawn in your little game, Victor. Sounds exactly like what I expected from you. The girl felt anger prickling at her skin. I'm not a pawn, and I don't need saving. She shouted, surprising herself with the force of her words. The crowd murmured, surprised by her tenacity. Victor's brow furrowed at her rejection, but there was something else there, a flicker of respect. You might just be the key I've been searching for, he said, the challenge igniting something in him. I am not your key. She shot back, her heart racing. I'm not involved in your twisted games. And yet, here you are, Jace interjected, a grin playing across his lips. In the midst of Titans, when all you wanted was to escape the fray. He lingered close to her, making sure she felt the weight of his presence. But how deliciously ironic, to have the power-hungry millionaire and the starving girl entwined in this drama. The crowd shifted, whispering among themselves, a chorus of opinions swirling in the air. Curiosity and disbelief rippled through them, each person drawn to the unfolding spectacle. Would Victor's offer prove to be a lifeline or a death trap? Suddenly, the figure in the shadows stepped forward. Quiet gasps erupted from the crowd again as a woman emerged from the dark, her features obscured by the dim alley light. Victor, she called, her voice melodic yet commanding. You have no idea what you are playing with. Victor turned, astonishment filling his eyes. Elena? The girl squinted, trying to take in the newcomer. She looked fierce, with an air of authority that seemed to electrify the atmosphere. Why are you here? Victor asked, voice trembling just slightly. I'm here to warn you, Elena replied, taking a bold step forward. This isn't just about you anymore. They know you're vulnerable. They come for her, too. Panic welled in the girl's chest, threatening to spill out. Who did she mean by they? A chill clawed at the back of her neck as she scanned the alley's dark corners. Something was closing in fast, a threat on the horizon, and she could feel the eyes of the crowd shifting away from Victor, now drawn to her. What do you mean? Victor demanded, his voice rising, a new urgency illuminating his features. You've been a target for too long, Elena explained, her voice low and deadly. And now your weakness is laid bare. They will not hesitate to strike while you're distracted. With every word, anxiety tightened around the girl's heart. She was caught in the middle of something far greater than herself. Victor's expression darkened as the reality unfurled before him. So, you're saying I have to choose between keeping her safe or keeping myself alive? Not just you, Elena replied, eyes narrowing. All of us. And the clock is ticking. In that moment, a sense of urgency overwhelmed the gathering, the stakes rising higher than anyone could imagine. The girl felt the gravitational pull of fate shifting, and panic seized her as she caught sight of glimmering figures emerging from the darkness, casting ominous shadows across the alley. The tension snapped tighter than a drawn bowstring, leaving the group on the verge of chaos. Would they band together, or would it unravel into destruction? As the figures approached, she understood the truth. She wasn't just a beggar anymore, but she might also be their last hope. What had begun as a desperate plea for help was about to spiral into a battle for survival. Would Victor rise to the occasion or be crushed under the weight of the storm enveloping them? The stakes had never felt higher. What would the next move be? The shadowy figures continued to emerge, their intentions unreadable, like wolves stalking their prey. The girl's skin prickled with fear, every instinct screaming for her to flee. But where could she go? Victor's gaze shifted from Elena to the approaching threat, his demeanor transforming from concern to determination in an instant. We need to move, he commanded, drawing the crowd's attention back to the pressing danger that now loomed. Elena stepped closer to the girl, her eyes fierce. Stay near him. Trust him, at least for now. He can protect you. The certainty in her voice was unsettling yet oddly comforting amid the chaos. The crowd parted as Victor propelled himself forward, grabbing the girl's wrist with surprising strength. Come on. His grip was firm, and warmth radiated from him, a stark contrast to the chill that wrapped around the alley. Jace had braced himself, a devilish glint in his eyes darting between Victor and the girl. What's the plan, millionaire? Throwing her to the wolves. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. It was a taunt laced with danger. Shut up, Jace. Victor growled, not even bothering to glance back. This is bigger than you and your theatrics. One of the figures stepped forward, a tall man clad in black, his face obscured by the shadows of a hood. A shiver ran down the girl's spine as he raised his hands, a weapon glimmering ominously in the faint light. Victor. You think you can protect her? You think you can walk away? Elena, what's he talking about? She asked, panic squeezing her throat. She could hardly breathe as reality sank in. This was real, and she was right in the eye of the storm. Elena's expression hardened. An enemy. You were never safe here. They'll come for what they believe belongs to them. Like you. Jace shot back, his sarcasm sharp enough to cut. The crowd was a medley of gasps and murmurs, uncertainty climbing like a living thing among them. We need to scatter, Victor urged, glancing around, the urgency in his voice amplifying the murmurs of the crowd. They want her. If we stay still, they'll pick us off one by one. Before she could process his words, he tugged her along, navigating the makeshift maze of the alley. They dashed toward a narrow passage where garbage bags leaned on the brick walls like forgotten relics of despair. The girl stumbled, and Victor steadied her, shooting her a look that held a storm of emotions. Jace laughed again, light and mocking, trailing them. You think running will save you? They'll find you wherever you hide. His tone was cold, his eyes gleaming with a twisted delight as if he thrived in the chaos. Why are you doing this? She shouted back, her breath quickening, the walls of the alley closing in around them. You thrive on fear, don't you? Fear, he echoed, his tone a mix of admiration and contempt. Fear is the greatest power there is. You have no idea what's coming, sweetheart. Suddenly, a piercing scream broke through the noise, echoing back down the alley. The girl froze, heart hammering in her chest, a whiplash of terror slicing through her. What was that? Victor tightened his grip on her wrist, panic rising in his eyes. Keep moving. Now. They dove deeper into the alley, adrenaline surging through her veins. The shadows danced, and the figures were closing in. She could feel their eyes on her, hungry and predatory. Victor turned to her, urgency etched in every line of his face. Listen to me, we're going to find a way out of this. Trust me. Trust. The words stumbled through her mind, weighed down by doubt and fear. The world around her felt unreal, spinning out of control. As they turned a corner, the light flickered for just a moment, illuminating a door that had been barely ajar. Escape. She felt hope igniting, but it was quickly snuffed out. Elena appeared beside them, breathless but determined. This way. Now. As they tore toward the door, the dark figures were upon them. A chill ran up the girl's spine, not from fear but from realization. It wasn't just her life on the line. They were racing into a future shrouded in unknowns. Where every decision would twist the knife deeper into the heart of survival, would the door lead to safety, or would it plunge them headfirst into an abyss? The question hung in the air, heavy and foreboding, as they made their last desperate dash. The door swung open, creaking on rusty hinges, revealing a dimly lit room drenched in shadows. The scent of damp concrete and something sweet yet rotting filled the air. Without a second thought, Victor ushered the girl and Elena inside, his protective instincts kicking in full throttle. Close it. Victor shouted, urgency escalating. The girl pushed the door shut, her heart racing as she turned the bolt. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed outside, growing fainter as they retracted into the distance. It was a temporary reprieve, but she knew the danger wasn't over. Victor pressed his back against the door, breathing heavily. His face was drawn tight with worry, the panic in his eyes an unsettling contrast to his usually collected demeanor. We should barricade it, he said, scanning the room. Elena moved to the far side, rummaging through scattered debris. She tossed an old wooden crate toward Victor. Here, help me set this up. As they shoved the crate against the door, the girl took in their surroundings: cracked walls, broken furniture, and a single flickering bulb overhead that cast an eerie light. It felt like a trap, a place forgotten by time, and she shivered at the thought of being caught here. What did that man mean? She asked, fear creeping into her voice. Who are they? What they want is more complicated than you realize, Victor said, his voice low and strained. They believe you hold something of great value, something they're willing to kill for. What? She blurted, panic swelling within her. I'm just a girl. Just a girl who stumbled into a world you shouldn't have touched, Elena replied, her eyes sharp. You've drawn their attention, and now they won't stop until they have what they believe belongs to them. The girl felt the weight of their words, confusion mixing with dread. She never felt significant, never thought her small life could intertwine with something so dangerous. Victor clenched his jaw. We need to figure out our next move. If we stay here, they'll find us. We have to find a way to leave the city. Leave? Jace's voice broke through the tension like a shard of ice. He appeared in the doorway, face taut with mockery, eyes glinting in the dim light. Run away, little chickens. Such a pity, because this little hideaway is about to get a lot more crowded. What do you want? Victor growled, stepping forward defensively. Well, I could tell you that I came looking for a good time, but watching your little drama unfold is far more interesting. He smirked, leaning casually against the doorframe. But let us face it, it won't be long before the others catch up. Stop playing games. Elena snapped, her patience thinning as she glared at Jace. The girl felt her heart thundering. Jace was enjoying this too much, feeding off their fear. The shadows wrapped around him like cloaks, making him appear even more sinister. I'm merely the messenger, he shrugged, overly smug. But there's a bigger game afoot, and you're all pieces on the board now. What are you talking about? The girl demanded, feeling the length of the room narrowing around her, suffocating her with confusion. Let us just say everything you thought you knew about your life is about to be turned upside down, he said, his eyes twinkling with mischief. And those who haven't played well will be removed. Without warning, a loud crash echoed from outside, rattling the door. The girl jumped, her breath snagging in her throat, as she cast a glance at Victor. What now? She whispered, fear choking her voice. Get ready, he responded, his expression hardening. We're not out of the woods yet. It's going to get worse before it gets better. With growing dread, the girl felt the shadows close in again, the dark figures outside no longer a distant threat but a tangible horror waiting to invade this cramped space. The stakes were rising, and as she looked around at their determined faces, one overwhelming thought crossed her mind: how could they possibly survive what was coming next? Before she could process it further, another crash splintered through the stillness, and the door rattled violently. Time was running out. The door shook harder this time, splintering the wood as if it were a mere toy. The girl felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins, her eyes wide with fear. What are we going to do? She gasped, stumbling back against a wall. Stay calm, Victor said sharply, his voice resolute. He threw another crate against the door, grunting with the effort. Elena joined him, her hands gripping the wood as they pushed it into place. Jace's smile widened, a twisted satisfaction dancing in his eyes. You really think that's going to stop them? He taunted, pushing off from the doorframe with a lazy casualness that only deepened their anxiety. There's no winning this, you know. He stepped closer, the shadows swallowing him whole. Running only delays the inevitable. Shut up. Elena snapped, her voice cutting through the tension. But the sound of another crash drowned her out, rattling the door and shaking their resolve. With each sharp blow, the girl felt her heart leap into her throat. Are they coming? She whispered, a lump forming as she tried to back away from the door's violent rhythm. They're coming, Victor confirmed, crouching low beside Elena. Listen. A low murmuring seeped through the cracks. Voices mingled with the urgent scrape of footsteps. It was a menacing symphony that twisted the girl's stomach into knots. Why can't we just talk to them? Maybe they'll listen. Her voice trembled with desperation. Jace laughed softly, an eerie sound that set her nerves on edge. Oh sweet girl, this isn't about conversation. It's about power and what you possess. And trust me, they won't be playing nice. What do they think I have? She pleaded, her mind racing with every possible thing she had ever touched, every memory that could hold value. Something far bigger than you can comprehend, Jace taunted, stepping back slightly, eyes glinting as he relished the fear he was conjuring. And, it's why you're in this mess. Enough. Victor stood, his fists clenched. This chaos is only going to escalate. We don't have time for games. We need a plan. Yelling at me won't help, Jace shrugged mockingly. But if you want my advice, I'd suggest getting out of here. Fast. Before Victor could respond, another violent crash echoed, and the door buckled under the weight of whatever was outside, something relentless, something hungry. How do we escape? The girl cried, panic pooling in her chest. Victor's gaze darted around the room, his expression hardening with determination. There has to be another way out. Look for a window. Elena bounded across the floor, her eyes scanning the crumbling walls. The girl followed, desperately pressing her palms against the cold, damp surfaces, searching for anything. Her fingers grazed over cracks, but no escape presented itself. The pounding intensified. With each strike, the door creaked louder, the sound reverberating like the ticking of a clock nearing midnight. In the chaos, the girl caught a glimpse of Jace, relishing their fear as though it fueled him. Tell me, she shouted above the chaos, are you on our side or theirs? Is there a difference? He replied with a smirk, his voice dripping with amusement. Elena yanked on the nearest window, her fingers slipping as the rusted frame refused to budge. Help! She gasped, her voice strained. I got it. Victor said suddenly, sprinting over to her. With one determined shove, he pulled the window open just wide enough. Come on. Now. He urged, pushing Elena through. The girl watched, her heart racing, as Victor's strong hands propelled her friend into the unknown, but as he turned to help the girl, the door shuddered violently again, and with a decisive crack, the wood splintered. Shadows surged into the room, and Victor's expression shifted to one of pure alarm. No. He shouted. Go. The girl hesitated, caught between flight and the chaos erupting behind her. One glance back at Victor showed him ready for battle, his lips set in a grim line. Get out. Now. Terror swallowed her whole. She dove toward the window just as the first figure lunged into the room, a looming silhouette that blocked her from their only route of escape, and in that moment, just as she was about to leap to safety, she saw the horrifying clarity of what waited for her. Time froze. Would she be quick enough? Would she outrun the shadows that wanted to claim her? As the shadows swirled, the girl's heart raced in rhythm with her fear. Would she leap into the unknown or face the darkness head-on? The girl's breath quickened as she stared wide-eyed at the looming figure ahead. It was closer now, an amorphous mass of shadow that pulsed like a heartbeat, hungry for her. She could feel an invisible pull, a noose tightening around her throat as panic thrummed in her veins. Jump! Victor's voice sliced through the tension, fierce and filled with urgency. His eyes burned with determination, but she could see the fear. His was the kind of fear that clawed at something deeper. He knew they might not escape. With another violent crash, the door crumbled wider, and the encroaching darkness surged into the room, writhing like smoke in a fierce wind. It reached out for her, tendrils snaking toward her ankles, cold as death. Now. Don't think. Victor urged again, his own body a last line of defense against the advancing tide. He waved her onward, his face resolute, but the moment hung heavy with uncertainty. The girl propelled herself toward the window, heart racing like a freight train. She could feel the shadows brushing against her skin, chilling her to the bone. As she dove through the opening, something cool clasped around her wrist. The creeping shadow had a grip. No. She screamed, twisting against the pain that shot through her. She yanked herself free, leaving a piece of her dignity behind in that terrifying domain. In a swift motion, she landed outside, sprawled on the cold ground. Her eyes darted back, heart shivering in trepidation as she waited for Victor's next move. She could hear the chaos unfolding inside, the cacophony of breaking wood and cracking walls mingled with Victor's strange shouts. Run! Just run! She shot to her feet, instinct overriding the dread bubbling in her chest. Her head spun, the shadows still looming within the confines of the building, a grotesque form lunging toward Victor as he fought with all his might. Victor! The cry left her lips before she could stifle it. But he was fading, lost in an ocean of darkness that swallowed him whole. She glanced around, the empty alley stretching before her, an endless void meant for escape. Yet her heart ached with the knowledge that she was leaving him, her protector, behind. Each instinct whispered for her to turn back, to fight alongside him, but survival instinct clawed louder, footsteps thundered in the distance. Faint shouts echoed through the alleyways. She took a trembling step forward, then another. Each dash away from that nightmare felt like a betrayal, but also a flicker of hope. Maybe they could regroup somehow. Her surroundings blurred as she ran, the cold bite of the night sending icy jabs through her skin. She didn't look back. Not when the shadows howled their anger or when the voices of the outside world grew clearer. Then a strange sound caught her ear, stopping her cold. A piercing scream punctuated the air, a sound laced with a familiar pain that made her blood run cold. It was Victor's voice. No, the realization was a knife twisting in her gut. It sliced through the adrenaline, replacing it with dread as she faltered, torn between instinct and the raw fear of what lay behind her. She could turn back, but what if it was too late? Emerging figures rounded the corner, shadows illuminating in the streetlight. They moved with an unsettling purpose, scanning the area, seeking something. Or someone. Help! She cried, frantically waving her hands. Please! He needs help. But their faces were unreadable, void of warmth, cold like the chill that surrounded her heart. As they approached, she felt the weight of doubt pooling inside. Would they assist her in finding Victor, or would they fall prey to the darkness too? In that instant, she faced a choice as heavy as the terror clinging to her soul. Would she find the courage to venture back, to confront the nightmare head-on for a chance to save him? Or would she flee and cling to the hope that somehow he would return? The girl stood frozen, torn between the present and an uncertain future, knowing she would have to decide in a heartbeat. As the figures drew nearer, a whisper of danger curled in the air, dark and foreboding. What choice would she make? The girl's heart felt like it was in her throat, pounding against her ribs with each second that ticked by. The figures, now just a few feet away, were shrouded in shadow, their features indistinct but their gaze piercing. They looked at her with an unsettling calmness, like predators trailing a wounded animal. Help! Someone, please! She shouted, her voice cracking under the weight of desperation. But instead of reaching for her, they paused, their expressions unreadable. A split second stretched painfully as she wavered, caught in the fear that the impending darkness might consume them all. They closed the distance quickly, the air thickening, electric with tension. One man, taller with a face half obscured by a hood, reached out a hand. What happened? Where is he? There was an urgency in his tone that hinted he understood. Even if she didn't see the warmth in his eyes, she opened her mouth, but words tangled up with tears. Victor, he's inside. Before she could continue, a shriek echoed from the depths of the building, echoing like a banshee's wail. It was like the very walls of the world split open, letting out a cry of sheer terror that gripped her insides with icy fingers. The figure recoiled, his face twisting into a mask of disbelief and concern as he exchanged glances with the others. Stay here, he instructed sharply, then charged toward the door, the others behind him. No. Don't go in. She screamed, but the shadows behind her hung low and the night felt heavy with their malevolence. She fought against the instinct to follow, rooted to the spot by fear of the unknown. I have to save him. Her mind raced, swimming in memories of moments spent engrossed in laughter, the warmth of his presence dripping into her thoughts like honey. As the men disappeared into the building, she felt the chill creep back into her veins. The air was charged, every corner of the alley alive with dread. No sirens pierced the night. No comforting voices called out. Just the shadows always lurking, always watching. Then a flash of movement caught her eye. Another figure emerged from the darkness, this one different, smaller, quicker, sliding between lampposts and slipping past her with breathtaking agility. It was a girl, her clothes tattered, eyes like wild flames. She didn't stop. Wait! The girl shouted. Have you seen him? Yes, move. The wild girl hissed, her voice barely controlled, flickering like a candle in a storm. They're coming. What do you mean? Confusion washed over her, fear dampening her resolve. The shadows, they're alive. They'll take you too. The frantic girl's face twisted in a mix of terror and urgency. Follow me, now. But couldn't she just wait for Victor? Panic surged and crashed like tumultuous waves inside her. Was she really going to abandon him? Did she even have a choice? Footsteps thundered behind her as the men returned, faces pale as they stumbled into view. It's too late. The tall man yelled. We couldn't find him. Get back. In that instant, the shadows coalesced, swirling ominously behind them, tendrils creeping forth like snakes ready to strike. She felt the grip of despair wrapping tighter around her heart. Come on. The wild girl shouted, seizing her wrist. We have to go. Before she could respond, they were running, the girl pulling with urgency, like they were both holding on to life itself. The shadows snarled like wolves, hot on their heels. With every step, the weight of her choice loomed larger. Would she ever get the chance to save Victor? Or had she just signed his death warrant by fleeing alongside a stranger? As they barreled down the alley, the sounds of chaos and darkness rose again behind her. With dread pooling in her stomach, she asked herself if running meant losing everything. But as the shadows flickered around them, one thing became hauntingly clear: there was no turning back now. What lay ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty, but the haunting question lingered in the air: could she trust this girl to lead her away from the nightmare, or would they both become victims to the very darkness she sought to escape? They ran, adrenaline fueling each frantic stride, but doubt gnawed at her like a rat at a decaying building. Was she just abandoning Victor to whatever darkness lurked inside, or was this wild girl her only chance for survival? The shadows slithered behind them, relentless and terrifying, and with every blink, the world around her began to distort, merging into a swirling vortex of confusion. The alley opened up into a wider street, lit by flickering street lamps that cast grotesque shapes on the pavement. The sounds of their footsteps echoed off the brick walls, creating an eerie rhythm alongside the whispers of the shadows. Where are we going? She gasped, trying to match the pace of the girl dragging her onward. Somewhere safe. The wild girl shouted, urgency tugging at her throat as she glanced over her shoulder. But you have to trust me. Trust? A pang of instinct screamed that trust was a luxury she couldn't afford now. But Victor suddenly, the shadows surged forward, coiling around the lampposts, crawling closer to her, like malevolent fingers trying to grasp at her very soul. She felt a sharp tug on her wrist, pulling her back into movement just as dark forms began to pulse and sway ahead, blocking their path. Every instinct drove her to freeze again, immobilized by fear, but the girl's grip was fierce. Keep moving. She cried, breaking into a sprint that left her breathless. The shadows darted toward them, creeping into the space between heartbeats, lurking at the edges of her vision. She could hear them whispering, low and sibilant, words that clawed at her mind and tugged at her darkest fears. Are they talking? She stammered, the horrified realization pricking at her consciousness. Just don't listen. The wild girl urged, dragging her down a narrower lane that forked to the right. If you listen, it will find you. But how could she not listen? Each syllable crept into her brain, teasing her with memories, dread, despair. Echoes of her past intertwined with the present. Prayers, promises, dreams of being saved, were they all lies? The shadows were coming, every haunting whisper tugging at her own insecurities. Victor, she choked out, the name tasting like ash on her tongue. Focus. We can't stop. A sharp turn led them into a hidden courtyard, the darkness thickening still. The wild girl darted toward an iron gate overrun with ivy, pushing against it as it creaked under the strain of her desperate shoves. The air felt tangible, charged with an unknown energy as the shadows thrashed and lashed at the edges of the courtyard, refusing to settle. Get in! The girl shouted, and in panic, she complied, slipping through the gate just as it banged shut behind them. Inside, the courtyard was steeped in a strange stillness, a stark contrast to the chaos they had fled. The muffled whispers from the shadows faded, but her heart raced, thudding against her chest like drums of war. Are we safe? She asked, breathing hard, her voice shaky but laced with desperate hope. For now, the wild girl replied, her eyes scanning the perimeter as if an answer rested within the walls themselves. But we need to hide. They will come for you. What do you know about them? She pressed, urgency igniting her concern. The wild girl turned, fierce determination igniting in her wild gaze. Everything. I used to be like you, oblivious. But I got out. They took someone from me. Don't make the same mistake I did. A chill ran through her, fear twisting inside. Was it just shadows she was fighting or something more sinister? Could she trust this girl who claimed to know the darkness so intimately? Just then, another shriek echoed outside the gate, a chilling reminder of the nightmare waiting just beyond their sanctuary. What was that? She gasped, the dread pooling back in her stomach. Their hunger has awakened. The girl hissed, raw panic lighting her features. And if we don't move now, they'll be here. We need a plan. Thumping against her chest felt the weight of dread. Could they really formulate a plan against an enemy so insatiable? With fear clawing at her again, she realized one undeniable truth: this was just the beginning, and the shadows weren't done claiming their victims. A promise of darkness loomed closer, igniting a dread she couldn't shake. Did running really mean they could survive? Or were they just stepping deeper into the abyss? The courtyard was alive with tension, every shadow a reminder of the danger lurking just outside. The girl's heart raced, pounding against her ribs as the wild girl pulled her deeper into the cover of the ivy. Distant cries echoed in the night, an unsettling symphony of fear that seemed to seep into her bones. What are we going to do? She whispered, desperation clinging to her voice. The wild girl pressed a finger to her lips, signaling for silence. We wait. They can't find us if we keep still, she instructed, wild eyes scanning the darkness beyond the gate. Desperation twisted in her gut. What if they come in? Then we run, the wild girl replied with a fierceness that ignited a flicker of hope within her. But that flicker was fleeting. Behind the gate, the shadows twisted and curled, whispering sweet nothings laced with venom, calling to her deepest fears, memories she wished to forget. Victor, she breathed, her chest tightening, recalling the fierceness in his eyes, the warmth of his words. We can't think about him now. The wild girl cut in, shaking her head. If we do, they'll sense it. She forced her attention back to the shadows creeping closer, their whispers mixing with the echo of crashing wood from the building. She felt the flicker of anger rise again, boiling within her at the thought of what might be happening to Victor. I can't just leave him, she said, her voice rising involuntarily. With a fierce glare, the wild girl gripped her arms tightly. Then you'll put both of us at risk. This isn't just about you anymore. You're not in the city where you can just vanish into the crowd. You're caught in a world where payback is primal, and you can't just be heroic. There's a chance to survive first. The girl shut her eyes tight, fighting against the tears forming. He helped me when no one else would. Surviving isn't selfish, the wild girl urged, her voice low but fierce. But if you choose heroics, you'll end up dead. And then where will that leave him? At that moment, a mighty crash echoed through the night, sending vibrations through the gate. The girl's heart stopped. "Get down!" she cried. They fell to the ground just as the gate buckled, heavy shadows flooding in, agile and fierce as predators ready to pounce. The storm of whispers grew deafening. "She's here, let us claim her," they hissed. A figure stepped forward, a towering mass of darkness, looming over them. It pulled at the wild girl with shadows twisting menacingly around her. "No!" she screamed, but the girl grabbed her hand tightly, desperate to shield her newfound ally. "Stay with me." The wild girl's eyes widened in gratitude and fear. They couldn't fight, but they could escape. "This way!" she shouted, pulling the girl toward a narrow gap in the wall, an opening just large enough for them to slip through. As they squeezed through, the shadows surged behind them, shrieks of anger howling as they tightened around the figure left behind. "Run!" the wild girl urged, tugging her forward into a maze of alleyways. The girl glanced back, watching as the darkness writhed, battering against the gate as they dashed further away. A sob caught in her throat. She knew they had to leave, but a part of her heart felt forever tethered to Victor. Moments turned into minutes as they sprinted through the winding roads, the wild girl's grip refusing to loosen. They needed to find shelter, a hiding spot away from the watchful darkness that lurked everywhere. Suddenly, she spotted a small diner, its neon sign flickering weakly in the distance. "There!" she gasped, pointing. They dashed inside just as the shadows coalesced into a formidable force behind them. The diner was dimly lit, the edges of the room taut with tension, as if the walls themselves could sense the encroaching danger. The girl's breath hitched as she turned to the wild girl. "What now?" "Hide!" the wild girl said urgently, pulling her behind a counter. They ducked beneath, the trembling of their bodies muffled by the cacophony of the world dropping away into silence. They listened as the door swung open, faint murmurs trailing in with the chill of the night. The shadows brushed against the diner, probing, searching, whispering about their escape. "She's close," one hissed, angered and restless. The girl trembled, gripping the wild girl's hand tighter. "Do you think they'll find us?" "Only if we lose our nerve," the wild girl whispered, her voice steady. "We need to wait until the coast is clear before we think about moving. We're safe for now." The words offered just a hint of comfort, but the girl felt the weight of uncertainty hanging in the air, each breath echoing loudly in her ears. An hour passed, or maybe 2 time stretched in their hiding place, every moment pulling them deeper into fear. But just when she thought the shadows would retreat, they heard heavy footsteps approaching, the low murmur growing louder. "They're not leaving," she gasped, her body going cold with dread. "Stay calm," the wild girl said. "No one even knows we're here." But as they huddled together, the very notion of safety began to feel like a distant dream. Would they ever escape? Would Victor emerge from the ashes of chaos to find her again? Hope and dread collided within her, a perfect storm of emotions swirling until her thoughts became a jumble. Suddenly, footsteps broke the quiet, a voice cutting through. "She's not here. Search elsewhere." She instinctively drew in a breath, the girl beneath the counter looking solemn yet determined. The sounds of the shadows drifting away had a chill of finality, slicing through the air like a knife. "Are they gone?" the girl murmured. "Let me check," the wild girl whispered. With caution, the wild girl peeked over the edge. The girl followed the movement, holding her breath as the shadowy figures retreated into the distance. "We need to move," the wild girl breathed, urgency returning. The girl nodded, wanting nothing more than to get away, but the idea of leaving Victor behind struck every nerve within her. "Before we go, we have to find him," she blurted out, the fear choking her voice. "Look around, the shadows aren't just hunting him, they're hunting you." "But I can't abandon him." "No one is asking you to," the wild girl insisted. "But we can't take that risk. We find safety first, then we can plan. No. The girl protested, feeling the tears welling up. I won't leave him. Please. The wild girl pressed fiercely. Trust me. If you don't, everything is lost. The weight of her words rushed back, clashing against the riptide of emotions surging inside her. The choices seemed unbearable. Victor, she whispered, the name like an unspoken prayer on her lips. Do you want him to die because you want to play the hero? The wild girl shot back, glaring at her intently. The shadows won't stop until they have you too. We're still alive, and that's what matters now. The truth hit her hard. Fighting against the inevitability of darkness was reckless. Okay, she finally said, choking on the fear clawing at her heart. Let us just go. With one last glance toward the door, she followed the wild girl, pushing through the heavy clouds of doubt. As they slipped out into the frozen night, she resolved to fight another day. The shadows may have won this battle, but she refused to let them claim her spirit. Together, they would find a way through the darkness, and somehow, just somehow, Victor would not be lost to the shadows. But as they fled through the darkened streets, the chilling realization clawed at her heart: the fight was far from over, and vengeance would lay its claim on all involved. Trust would be their compass, even as they drifted into the uncertain horizon, hearts pounding with the knowledge that the darkness had not yet finished with them. Their journey was only just beginning, and with each step, they merged into the unfolding chaos of a world that would forever be haunted by what surrounded them. In the depths of the night, as distant shadows loomed closer, the girl vowed not just to survive, but to reclaim the light. Her fight, Victor's fight, had only shifted, and neither of them would be lost without a trace, but the questions loomed. Would the darkness consume her? Would she ever see Victor again? Time would tell, but she was ready to face it all. Let us run, she whispered to the wild girl, determination igniting in her chest. Let us run, the wild girl echoed determinedly. In unity, they surged forward, driven by hope, a glimmer etched against the oppressive night, ready to carve their way through the chaos because together, they would defy the shadows that sought to claim them. Never again would they be merely victims. Instead, they would forge a path built on courage, marking the beginning of a new chapter filled with resilience, strength, and the promise of survival. The night was dark, but dawn would come, now more than ever. As they vanished into the distance, the echoes of their will lingered a roar against the silence waiting to embrace them. It was just the beginning. But wait. Do not leave without taking action. You need to subscribe now, and hit that notification bell immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive story that's just around the corner. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I want to hear from you, my amazing community. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, we can grow this community, and your support means the world. Let us do this.